Hi, today I'm here with Rebecca Thoman.
Thoman.
Sorry about that. Who is the president of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay. So why don't you give the audience a little background? How long have you been associated with the League of Women Voters, that sort of thing? And...
Sure. So just to start, the League of Women Voters actually was started right after the passage of the 19th Amendment by a lot of the same women who passed the 19th Amendment. And the goal of the organization was to say, we fought for this power of the vote, now we have to use it. Mm-hmm. So it was about engaging women in particular, teaching them all about how to vote, and engaging them in understanding what the issues were and who the candidates were so they could make informed decisions and fully participate in democracy.
That's a great mission. It's not just women who can join, though, right?
No, in fact, it was 1972, I think, we started allowing men to become members, but the mission has really moved more toward underserved people in the community who don't have access to the same information maybe as others. Mm-hmm. So we focus on areas where there tends to be lower voter turnout and trying to empower and encourage those folks to get involved in the process, to get all the voices heard.
So when did it start, say, in Minnesota? And maybe you could talk a little bit about, because I know you represent a Minneapolis chapter, but what's the overall structure look like?
So the Minneapolis League is a component of the Minnesota State League of Women Voters. And I think we have 34 local leagues around the state, so lots of local leagues. And then the state league is a component of the U.S. League. So we function on issues at the federal, state, and local level. The local leagues, we focus on Minneapolis. And so this year, we have this huge, very consequential election. A lot of other leagues around the state don't. They have a year off. So we're really focused on the Minneapolis election, and because our city elections are in odd-numbered years, they can really fly under the radar. The biggest voter turnout for a municipal election we ever had was 4 years ago when there was a mayoral race, and we had 52% turnout.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, I was going to say that's pretty bad. I mean, compared to Minnesota, we're always way at the top nationally. 2 years ago, we had 32% voter turnout. In some wards, it was 17% voter turnout. So it's always a problem that the local races don't get enough publicity. They just don't get the same. A lot of people are focused on what's happening nationally. There's so much to focus on what's happening nationally. But we're trying to say, yes, but there's a very consequential race here with a group of people that are going to really decide the future of our city, which is really at a turning point.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of even this, the podcast and newsletter. I mean, I really try and focus on local issues and let the national stuff take care of itself, because there's plenty of people out there covering them. Do you find is there any relationship between how many people turn out for one of your forums and how many people end up voting in the ward? Or
that's a good question. I have no idea.
Right.
I don't know that we've ever tried to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think is driving those voter turnout numbers?
I think it's lack of awareness that there's even an election. It's like there's a lot of noise out there in the communication environment, and it's hard to break through to get people's attention to know there's an election going on. Then I think there's also a disconnect in understanding, what do those elected officials do? How does that even impact my life? And I think people kind of generally look at government as this monolith instead of thinking, this is what this person is responsible for. The mental health services in Minneapolis are really county controlled. That's where the money and the services are. So one thing I really appreciate about the League is our effort to help people understand where the levers are. If your issue is about funding for the schools, that's a state legislative issue. So, just helping people understand, who is this person in front of me? What is the scope of their authority in that role? And then what are their views on what they can do at their level?
So your organization's nonpartisan, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do they do any sort of lobbying on the state level, whether for, just for your organization or others, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have we have two kind of buckets of work. Voter services, we're nonpartisan across the board, which means we do not endorse any candidates, we do not endorse a political party, but we have positions on issues. So we're very stringent in our voter services, where we do our candidate forms, our voter registration. There's no connection to any sort of policy goals or initiatives that would imply we want you to vote for one candidate or the other. We keep that totally separate, but we do have a very robust action and advocacy where we have a whole set of principles and policies that we then advocate for. So yes, we do a small amount of lobbying, which is basically just talking to lawmakers about the issues and encouraging them to vote in favor of particular issues. We don't look at them, are they a Democrat or Republican? We simply go with what we think is an issue. I think that's getting harder because previous issues that may have been less partisan are becoming more partisan. So even though we've always had a position on
Gun control
would be one, gerrymandering, we're against, absolutely against. Now it's kind of becoming a political thing. So we stay really true to our principles and policies and, advocate for that across the board. And I think that's what makes us really unique. We really try to stay focused on facts and information and present that and let the voters make their own determinations. That's kind of how we approach our candidate forums. So we want the candidates to look at the audience. This is sometimes the only time you'll see all the candidates together and answer questions to the audience. They're not playing to a camera. They're not playing off each other. It's not a debate. Technically, a debate, is a pro and con about an issue where you're trying to influence the outcome. These are really just candidates facing the people, asking questions that have come from the audience or that we've received in advance. What we do, though, is we try to make the questions not bias in any way. So a lot of people submit a question that is kind of a statement that sets up the question, and we really try to do that. We work so hard on that. Again, we have teams of people who are trained in how to do a nonpartisan question. So we put a lot of effort into maintaining that nonpartisanship as a way to empower the voters. We want the voters to see and decide for themselves. And the candidate forum is just one way for them to get information. I was reading a little bit about our history before I came here.
Okay.
The League of Women Voters was the sponsor and moderator for the very first televised presidential debate in 1976. And we ran the presidential debates in 80 and 84. And what changed was the two political parties got together and created this presidential commission on elections and started saying, oh, League, we'll let you come moderate, but you have to do this, this, and this. And they wanted to decide the questions. They wanted to decide format. And the League said, no, you're setting this up. We're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And at that point, we backed out in this commission, which has, at least at the time, appeared to be more run by the candidates or their parties. The two big parties were running it now. So at that point, we no longer were involved in the presidential, but we've been doing candidate forums since our inception, and it was just getting together at the school or the church or the town hall or whatever and bringing the candidates to actually talk to the people. And that's our ultimate goal with our forums.
Well, however you've navigated what's a pretty tricky political system, you've done well because the reputation your organization has is fantastic. So how long, just kind of shrinking it down to Minneapolis, how long have you been doing forums here? And then do you just do mayor and city council, or you mentioned a couple other things like, do you do park board or school board or county stuff?
Yeah, we do all those.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know when we first started, but we've been doing candidate forums for as long as I've been around the league. This year we are doing all the city council races where there is a challenger, which is all of them. the mayor, the Board of Estimate and Taxation, so come on down to that exciting one.
Yeah.
And then the Park Board, we're actually doing Park Board, all the seats are available, all the districts and the open seats, and we're doing 1 day long, all the Park Board candidates on the 29th of October, so we are getting all the Park Boards. Past years, there's nobody running for City Council this year. So we don't have a school board.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody running for
Right.
school board this year, so we don't have a school board forum. And then the county forums, we will partner with our sister leagues. So when there's a Hennepin County race, Edina, Bloomington, Richfield, some of the other local leagues will all get together and co-sponsor that forum for county attorney, or county commissioners. So yeah, we do every race, and then next year we'll be doing the state legislature races that are in Minneapolis.
Okay.
The St. Paul League will do the races in St. Paul, the state legislative races.
So that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Are you? Do you have you must have some full-time employees, I'm guessing. It's not all volunteers, right?
Surprise, surprise. We have, our city league, we have 2 incredible, both part-time staff people. Our voter services runs primarily on volunteer. We have an incredible team of, I would say, 4 or 5, 6 maybe core volunteers who run. They just have everything set up. They've been doing this for years. Around them is about another core of 30 volunteers, and we have hundreds of volunteers who get involved when it comes to things like voter registration, going out into the high schools. I think we've been to 18 high schools this year already.
Okay.
Pre-registering 16 and 17-year-olds and registering 18-year-olds. So yeah, it's an army of people who have been trained and know all the rules around voting and registering. So it's really remarkable. I'm so proud, and I'm in awe of them. When I see them pull this stuff off, I'm like, wow. Mm-hmm. It takes a tremendous amount of work and a real commitment to the nonpartisanship. People don't come to the league if they come and they have a political viewpoint, they're probably not going to be happy here. So people who want to get involved with a candidate or whatever, we say, great, that's just not here. Mm-hmm. We're really keeping it neutral. We don't put lawn signs up. We personally, those of us in leadership positions, we don't state who we're voting for because we don't want anything to be perceived as bias. That's really the gold standard for us.
So you mentioned that there's training on the questions and how to make the questions nonpartisan. Does that happen at is there a state program for that? And I think the last forum I was at was Ward 7, and they prefaced it by saying, we don't want statements, we want actual questions. So are the questions always directly from the audience, or do you write some beforehand, or how does that work?
Yeah, but our team usually comes up with 3 or 4 questions that they think are particularly pertinent to that ward based on early questions. So we'll get, people will start sending us questions before the forum. Mm-hmm. And also just from the media, the news outlets, the sources in the community that seem to indicate what are the most important issues there. There's a lot of common important issues, but in some areas they're very specific. So we try to get 3, 4 questions ready to go, and then audience questions come in, and that helps determine what's the priority. So if we get a lot of the same question, that's going to be elevated. And we'll get people who come in with a bias, but we're going to ask the neutral question. In fact, we've had people come in with biases on both sides. Mm-hmm. And so we've kind of tried to say, what about this and that? We're trying to make it so people can address both sides of it. And we also have moderators undergo a lot of training on how to handle the candidates, handle the audience. We really try to set it up so we depend on a well-behaved audience, and that we usually get that because we say, this is not
Minnesota.
This is not Hunger Games. Don't bring in your signs and your shirts and yell.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
unique.
Really
yeah.
no political paraphernalia. Just come in. No applause, no outbursts. Yeah, people might laugh, people might sneeze, but no hooting, no shouting, no booing, no clapping. Mm-hmm. We want to keep it really clear that we're just listening to the answers.
Is there a set time for the, like, is it always an hour or 2 hours, or, because I would think that kind of is going to determine how many questions you can ask. So I think Ward 7 was an hour, and it was pretty strict time. So how does the actual time get determined?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't think there's a strict rule, but it is about how many candidates are up there. So it's really hard to go more than 2 hours for anything. We'll just lose people's attention. Most of them are an hour. If it gets unwieldy or a large group of candidates, we might have to go to an hour and a half or even 2 hours. I don't think we've ever gone past 2 hours. Yeah, so that we want to be able to have each candidate speak, and we have found, even though people are not happy with 1-minute answers, we've never found that to be a problem, because in 1 to 1.5 minutes, the candidates have to be concise. They have to indicate their priorities and how they answer the question, and you get a sense of how they think. So, we don't do debates. People don't go back and forth. We don't fact check. If a candidate wants to address something another candidate said, they can do that in their allotted time. That's up to them. And then the audience is there to see how the candidates perform and what they say, and be the judge for themselves.
Has the format changed at all? I mean, from the 80s when you were doing presidential to now, has it always been 1 or 1.5 minutes, or like what changes have taken place over the years?
I'm not aware of any significant change. I'm not a good historian there.
Okay.
But as long as I've been involved, we've been pretty much using this format. The challenges of late, and we're trying a meet and greet, so we often will have a meet and greet with the candidates either before or after the forum, and that's just informal. The candidates will come early, or they're hung around, so that the people at the forum can ask them follow-up questions, or confront them about something that they may disagree with, but it's an opportunity for the one-on-one or small group interaction. And so we're actually doing another mayoral candidate meet and greet at the Swedish Institute.
Yes.
I got to get my date now. I'll come up with it. But that's kind of a new thing for us, is trying to expand the meet and greet, in part because we had so many mayoral candidates. And then the other challenge is when people want to be here virtually. If they can't be at the forum, how do we handle that? New technology needs, and there's always these questions that we're grappling with. We've not had to deal with that in Minneapolis this year. Fortunately, all the candidates have been able to be there in person, but I anticipate we'll have to come up with more strategies to how to make that effective, even though if we can't have all the candidates there in person.
Yeah, that's a interesting dilemma, I guess. I know at least there's one park board candidate, Jason Garcia, that's, I think, in the hospital and has been in the hospital for a while. I don't know what his status is, but that would be tough, right?
Yeah.
If he misses the forum, and could hurt his chances. But I don't know how you can't plan, I guess, for every eventuality, right?
Right. And
okay.
what we've really done is said, look, we are not an arbiter of who is appropriate to be on the ballot. The voters have decided they want ranked choice voting because they want to allow people who are not necessarily affiliated with a party, or maybe don't have a lot of money, to be able to throw their hat in the ring and talk about the issues they care about. So the criteria to run for Minneapolis mayor or city council is pretty small. You have to be 21 and have lived in the city for 20 days and not be incarcerated for a felony.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or pay the fee, which is pretty low.
And either you pay the 500 fee, or you get 500 signatures. So.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's probably people out there that would like to have the residency requirement be a little stricter and the fees a little higher, maybe. But I will say I've witnessed a lot of forums. I've participated in them, and I definitely really appreciate that you provide that format, nonpartisan. And to me, I think one of the interesting things is that there's definitely other organizations out there that host forums that sort of have an agenda. They invite you, you're going to have kind of questions about specific topics, and they don't invite all the candidates, right? So I appreciate that you have them on. I think, some of the lesser known candidates definitely can have at least ideas that, are worth considering, right? Maybe by the top candidates, or positions that maybe the top candidates haven't considered because they maybe thought they were too controversial or something like that. But I definitely see the value in having everybody there. But as you mentioned with the mayoral thing, it's 15 candidates. So that's what are some of the challenges that you kind of have to tackle when you have that many candidates?
Well, we had the best moderator for that. She's actually the president of the League of Women Voters of Minnesota and had been doing this forever. So she's really good. She's seen it all. She's knows how to control things and did an excellent job of keeping things in line. I think the challenges are we always want to start with a different candidate, so we're not doing the same order, and that's really difficult to manage when you've got so many candidates. Which question goes to who first? So that's a lot the moderator has to be on top of. I think that I agree with you, though, that having people up there who we may not think are real candidates because they're not affiliated with a party or coming from a lot of money, they bring points, they bring up topics and issues that force the community and the candidates to think about and address. Mm-hmm. So, and this is what people wanted. This is like bare bones democracy. No thresholds, no party thresholds, no fundraising thresholds. And we're not the only source. That's the other thing is, I think you had mentioned, there are other groups, people like you, who are doing more in-depth interviews with the candidates. We have a voter guide. In our voter guide, there's all the information you need about voting, and then who the candidates are and how to learn more about them. We have tricks about how to get more information about candidates, their websites, Facebook. And then we also have vote411.org, which is kind of the online version of that. It accumulates all the voter information, gives you a sample ballot, and then we also ask the candidates 3 questions. You can see their answers to 3 questions there, and that's a springboard also to learn more. So, we don't think we can do it all, but we're doing as much as we can.
I mean, that's a lot right there.
It's about empowering people and motivating people to understand how important the election is.
Mm-hmm. Is that a voter guide out already, or is that still?
Yeah, we've printed thousands. They're all out around the community. We've really focused on certain wards, areas of the city that tend to be underrepresented and less access to information. And then that can be downloaded also from our website. So yeah, that's accessible. And then, like I said, Vote 411 is kind of the same thing, very similar, but the online version.
Okay. So do you maybe meet like on an annual basis and kind of talk about the forum format? I mean, is there a process for considering changes to the format, or?
Well, actually, so the state leads a monthly meeting of all of the volunteer leaders who do voter services mm-hmm. around the state. So the person in charge of voter services from Minneapolis, St. Paul, Mankato, Duluth, St. Cloud, all get together once a month to share information and experiences so we can help each other navigate things and come up with suggested changes that then the state will look at and make a sort of a decision in its final, because we have instruction books, training, mm-hmm. that can change as needs arise. And so, yeah, the policy is including all the people out in the field leading this endeavor to give feedback so that the state can make changes as it needs.
So here's why I ask. I have a couple of changes I might suggest and like your feedback on them. In some ways I understand, and you mentioned earlier, like some people have complained about the time limit of one minute. And I get when you have a lot of candidates how you have to have some kind of limit, but some questions are like really complicated, right? Like to ask someone about their position on homelessness and only give them 1 minute. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. It makes it very difficult, I think, for both the candidate to give a well-rounded answer, and then a lot of times the audience is going to leave with maybe just a partial understanding. And since, going to those forums is sometimes the only time people sort of participate or hear from these candidates, I just wonder, and it sort of flattens out, right? Like, so if you have the same amount of time for homelessness and the same amount of time for, say, like, I don't know, another topic, building codes, I don't know. But it makes them seem like they're the similar relevance, and really maybe they're not. So how do you kind of deal with those constraints?
Well, I think we're also looking for some consistency across the board. So if there's a ward with only 2 candidates, we can't give each of those candidates 5, 6, 7 minutes to answer the same questions that in other forums we're only giving them 1 or 2. So we try to give them as much time as we can. But like I said, this is a starting point. This may be the first time people see the candidates in person, and we're really wanting them to trigger them to ask more questions and learn more and motivate them. We don't expect people to decide at the forum. Some people will, but it's really a jumping off place to get more and more people engaged. Again, I think we have multiple places that people can get information, and we're just really encouraging them to do that.
Right. So, yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Not meant to be.
We try to bring what we have heard are the top issues, and as the audience, if we have 20 questions on transportation, that will be elevated in the program. So we start with what the 2 or 3 things that we have found are the most commonly asked, things about, usually it's public safety, it may be about homelessness, it may be about schools, it may be about climate and transportation. Those are some of the things that come up really consistently. So we have those ready to go. And then other things come in, and even more specific to the ward. And we will slip those in and move those up if that seems to be a priority.
So another idea I had after watching the mayoral forum was, because it's not a debate, right? That's clear. Why not, when you have that many candidates, say, okay, each candidate gets 5 minutes. Here's 3 things we'd like them to cover, and just have them each do a presentation, leave the stage, then they can stay or go if they want.
I'll take that back.
Take it back.
I'll take it back
Okay.
as a suggestion.
All right. And so one of the complicated ones, and it seems very pertinent right now, is the whole issue of freedom of speech, right? And so what's the policy on that, or how do you deal, like, let's say a Nazi decided to run for city council, and they're going to be in the debate, or like in the last forum, somebody was advocating for hanging people for sedition, which seems very like violent rhetoric. But I could see, there's a myriad of ways that could go. Someone could be openly racist. There could be all kinds of different things. So how do you handle those sort of topics?
Again, the moderators do a great job. First of all, we try to create the setting of respect and, even playing field. And then all the candidates agree to participate under this structure, and our rules are about respect. So if there's name calling, our moderator will interrupt and say, please don't do that. I think if there are really controversial statements that are political views, we're not there to censor them. In fact, we want the voters to see how these people think and what their opinions are. So, and if there was anything that was disruptive or violent or a threat, again, we would intervene, and we can remove people if they are disruptive, and we call for backup if we need it. It's never gotten to that point.
Do you have security there? I didn't notice that. But I've even, and this is a side point that doesn't, but your debates have always been people do seem to reflect that attitude of respect that you're trying to, but I've been to other neighborhood meetings where that is certainly not the case. And like they could have really benefited, it seemed almost, from security. But so how, what is do you have like security there? I mean, how does that work?
I think most of the time the security is based on the building. It may have its own security people, depending on where we're doing it, at the library or whatever the place is. The only thing we do is we let the police know these things are going on. We let our public safety teams know this stuff is going on, but we've never really had to, it's never gone that far. So, and if it did, we'd call 911. I mean, that's what we would do if we had to.
And how do venues get chosen? I know the Ward 5 one was outdoors, and I think it was kind of chilly.
Yeah.
And then you had the library, I know, the one at the Bakken, that was a great location. But so how do you end up choosing them?
Well, I should have said earlier, all of this is done in partnership with our local neighborhood community councils and other groups. So we're putting this on, but we really rely on them to help us know that neighborhood's needs. So the neighborhood councils are really helpful in finding the right location. They know where the community meets. They know they have partnerships with some of the groups that provide space for them. So we let them take the lead on that, and also they also have some guidelines about what they might do for security if that comes up. So the neighborhoods are also really closely involved, so it's not just on us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Well, are there any other issues that we should talk about today that we haven't covered? Oh, one thing I was curious if you've heard from your voter services is what does registration look like these days? Are you seeing like a lot of enthusiasm? Are you getting more registrations than normal? Like what's out there in the field, what's happening?
I don't know if we've gotten more than normal, but I know we've been asked to come do voter registration. Every year it gets more and more and more, and we've done a huge amount of youth voter registration. High school students, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. We've really been pushing that. And we do, just so people know, you can register online, you can register on a paper form, and you can register the day that you vote. However, there is a deadline. So the cutoff, I believe it's October 12th this year. If you are not registered to vote by October 12th, you're going to have to register when you vote. And same day voter registration at the polls. So a lot of people don't realize that. And voting by mail, we still have all the same rules and everything in place. I know people are frightened by what's happening at the federal level. These Minneapolis elections are going to run smoothly and securely with no concerns. Knock on wood. We don't see there's anything that's going to change what's happened in the past. So we're pretty confident about those. But getting people have to register if they're a first-time voter, new voter, if they haven't voted in 4 years, or if they've moved and have a new address. So we want to be sure people know that, so if they have a new address, they know they're registered, they know where to vote, they know who's now what ward they're in and who's on the ballot. So it's really good to get out and do that, and all that information is on the Secretary of State website. You can find everything. You can track your ballot. I mean, everything you want to know. Just go to the Secretary of State website and go to elections. Right. And everything's right there.
So I am curious, and I should look this up, about how the registering at the polls work. Like, do you have to show a license? Or I think there's also this ability to just vouch for someone that they live where they say they live. I mean, do you know what the rules around that are?
You used to be able to vouch. You do have to show some identification that indicates that you live where you live. So usually the problem is somebody has a driver's license. They've moved and they haven't updated their driver's license. So usually a utility bill, something that has their name and their address with a date. I paid this utility bill. But there's a whole list. Again, you can go on the Secretary of State's website. There's a whole list of the kind of documents that you can use. Utilities are usually an easy one that people have access to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I'm very glad that your organization exists, that you're out there doing the good work you're doing. I hope you keep it up, So
Thanks. So I should get the date for you, but so the meet and greet for all of the mayoral candidates at the Swedish Institute is going to be next month. I'll get you that information so you can let people know. But yeah, we have a lot more. All the rest of the ward candidate forums are coming up. The Park Board, Board of Estimate and Taxation. Go on to our website. You can find all the wards candidate forums, when they are, where they are. lwvmpls.org.
And you record them. So if people aren't able to
Exactly.
attend, they can go online and...
We actually live stream them. You can watch them in real time. And then we do have the recordings up on our website. And you can link to the recordings from Vote 411. So lots of ways to get there.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. It's
Thanks,
really nice to
Terry.
talk to you today.
Thank you so much.
All right.